Take this review with a grain of salt. Bleak Faith is a game that I haven't been waiting on as long as a lot of people have, but I've definitely been eager to play this game for a few months now. This game is a Souls-like game that nails the ambiance, the mood, the feel of that game. It just scratches really that Dark Souls itch that I needed scratched. Unfortunately, that is pretty much where the positives for this review end. I will say that I think this game is going to end up getting a lot of flack regardless, so I'm not going to harp on all the negative aspects of this game. I will touch on a few of them. Number one, the controls of this game are abysmal. It's borderline unplayable on a controller, despite the fact that there is an entire system at play for you to use a controller.
And I usually play these games on controller, but with everyone saying that the game sucks on controller, I just had to play on mouse and keyboard, which is not my preferred method. And I'd have to say it's not the preferred method of most people who play these types of games. Only a very select few. So not having it playable with controller on launch is just a big miss.
You start the game and it literally says this game is intended for mouse and keyboard, which is perfectly fine. But the controller input is so bad that it might as well not even be in the game. If it is...
Yeah, that would, because you would essentially eliminate people complaining. There'd be far less people complaining about, oh, there's no like controller support. Like, okay, big deal. Like, it's only on mouse and keyboard. Fine. But if you're going to have the option to play on controller, then at least make it playable. Don't just say, oh, it's intended to be on mouse and keyboard, but you can play a crappier version on controller. Another miss.
It's going to be so incredibly difficult to use a controller. Just don't even make that an option and just pour all of your manpower into making keyboard and mouse actually work like it's supposed to, because it also barely works. Like it does, and significantly better than the controller, but still not good. We have not reached good yet. The camera is also bad. They're going for this cinematic kind of feel, which I respect. I think it looks really cool. I think the idea and the concept behind it is really good. But God, does it just float around you in the weirdest ways. And it is up your ass half the time.
It is
if there's
so
a wall
floaty
behind you,
yeah, the
good
camera
luck. You're looking at the back of your...
Yeah, the camera is so bad. And like whenever you're in tight hallways or in like a close battle, it's like so zoomed in, you can't tell like what you're doing. And that's like the majority of fights.
Your dude's skull. The fighting is just painful. It's so sluggish, the combat. The best way I can describe it is it feels like you're playing a game from like the early 90s on Unreal Engine 5. It looks great, but god damn it, your guys got to think about it for a little while when you tell them to attack. The advertising for this game feels...
The jank is so bad. Oh my gosh. It's like I go to put in like an input, like parrying, for example. It just won't even register half the time. And then like and whenever I do like hit the timing of it, it doesn't even do it. And I'm not even a parry like kind of person. It's like I feel like I'm forced to having to try and parry because they decided that they're not going to include iframes, which I mean is a ballsy decision. First of all, not to have iframes in a Souls-like game where a big part of it is having iframes so you can dodge roll. But okay, fine. If you're going to do that, then your gameplay has to be pretty spot on. Especially with like with enemy hitboxes. Gosh, I can run up right in front of an enemy, hit them, and then it not even register the attack. It's a very, very hard miss, not including iframes.
It was more intentionally manipulative than most other games that I've seen in a while. When you play this game and you feel how bad the controls are and how bad the animations are, and then you go back and watch the gameplay trailers and look at the hyper stylized, hyper edited combat systems that they show in the trailers, you realize why it's like that. Every time there is a quick cut between attacks, you know that that is no longer a stylistic choice. That is them hiding the flaws in their games right in front of you. And I didn't watch any.
or I did like watch one gameplay trailer, but I didn't really like notice that. But if what he said is true, then that's really like scummy on their end.
Appreciate that. I would rather you just have nothing but cinematic trailers than piece together gameplay that isn't good. All that being said, there are significantly more issues that I have with this game, but the thing that I want to talk about is the response that I'm seeing from the people leaving positive reviews for this game. I know, I'm going a different route. There are absolutely going to be people that
oh my gosh, you look on the Steam reviews, it really looks like they're either one, they're paid to put these comments in there by the developers, or two, they're just naive simps for the game, and that they've been waiting for this game to come out since it was announced back in 2019, and they just don't want to admit that they're wrong. And it's like, oh, it's going to get better in time. People are crapping on it for no good reason. And it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like the art is that all of them talk about how good the art is. And it's like, and they'll put in a disclaimer. Oh yeah, it's still kind of janky, but they're going to work on it. It's like, what? Can you expect, like, trust them to like fix it if they're going to release it in a state like this?
Review bomb this game. And there's something to be said about review bombing for sure, but we're going the route of there are, I think, too many people giving this game a free pass on all the issues that it has because the developing team was so small. Bleak.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's so impressed with what like only 3 developers could do like with this game. And it's like, yeah, I'm impressed what they accomplished. But like this game was announced in they started development in January 2019. And it's now March 2023. Like this game took 3 developers 4 years and like 2 months to make. Okay. Which is really wild. And like for some context, like Elden Ring took 4 years and 9 months with a huge studio. They just did not put enough time in. They essentially rushed it out. They, like, these developers talk about, oh my gosh, you go look in their Discord, and they're like, oh my gosh, it feels like 4 years of hard work is just getting slandered by trolls or whatever. It's like, no. How do you expect the game that you put out to be worth anything if you didn't put the appropriate amount of time in? Yeah, you're only 3 small developers, and guess what? You're going to reap the reward of that because it's only going to get split however many, like only 3 different ways. What those percentages are, I don't know, and what their expenses are, but you can't expect to release a game only 4 years and expect it to like be in a state that's appropriate to release in. And and people want to go to bat on these guys, saying, "Oh, it's only a small development team, like cut them some slack." It's like, no. Why are you releasing a product that's not finished? It's like for one, they should have had the insight to know that only 4 years in development by 3 people was way too aggressive. They essentially just bit off more than they could chew, and they just lacked the patience to keep going, to make sure that it was completed. And then people be like, "Oh my gosh, it's been delayed so many times." It's like, okay, if it was delayed, that means they had a set release date prior to 4 years, which is still crazy. Like, oh my gosh. And these developers, it's all like poor us. Trolls are just absolutely ruining the game in the reviews. And I'm like, yeah. Like, how do you expect consumers to react whenever they spent money on your product, waiting for it to come, some of them waiting for it to come out, and then it just be like borderline, like just not fun. It's not a fun game to play. And like reviewers just really want to focus on the fact that there's only 3 people who developed this game. And it's really just irrelevant how many people developed your game. That is a business decision on their part of how many people that they want to develop this game. Like, that has nothing to do, or it shouldn't even be brought up in a review of the game if you're going to be objective.
Faith was made by like 3 developers in 4 years, I think, which is an incredible undertaking, and kudos to the guys for seeing their vision through to the end. However,
seeing it through to the end, they didn't see it through to the end. It's not finished.
This shouldn't be the end. Playing this game does not feel like you are playing a finished product. But there are so many people that just are okay with the way that this game has turned out, specifically because a small developing team created it. I am not leaving a review on Steam. I am also not asking for a refund, despite the fact that I cannot stand this game. Because I think it also people need to realize that you cannot appreciate a final product, but you can appreciate the effort put into it and want to support the creator. And that's where I am. I think that the vision behind this game is fantastic. I think that there's a lot of potential still left to be had with this game, hopefully. So I'm keeping this game, and I'm going to revisit it hopefully after a few patches. Hopefully they patch it.
Yeah, so a lot of arguments people are trying to make is like, oh, they're going. Usually, whenever someone is super hyped for a game, okay, they're gonna simp on it super hard, and then once it like releases and there's a lot of issues, oh, the developers are gonna come in and they're gonna patch it and they're gonna fix everything, and it's only gonna take a few days. They said it's only gonna take a few days. It's like, don't be upset yet. It's like, they're gonna fix it. There's only 3 of them. You can't even get AAA developers to fix their game within a few days, to fix all the day one bugs. Like, those are going to happen. Oh, and it was so wild. There was a post by one of the devs that is like, oh, we're going to take the weekend off to, like, because we spent like 4 long years on this every single day developing this game. We're going to take the weekend off right after it releases. Like, what? You people know you can't do that because there's going to be issues. And if they didn't know that there was going to be issues that they needed to fix that next weekend, then they're delusional. It's like, how could you not see this coming? They got impatient. They wanted to release it, and they thought that they were going to, I don't know from a business side how much, like if they were pressured into releasing it due to money, and then but for one, it's not a finished product. And if you couldn't spend, like, for only 3 people, you had to spend minimum 6 years. 6. For it to even be quote unquote finished. Not perfect, but at least finished in a finished state. And it's like they're not, this is not a charity. This is not, this is an indie dev team. This is not a charity. They're going to reap the profits of this 3 ways. They don't have to spread it around to a whole studio. So, yeah, it's like, okay, they're upside for them only having 3 people means more money in their pocket whenever the game sells. So they're going to get compensated appropriately. But you can't be like, oh, poor me. There's only 3 of us. And act like all the other devs, like, because other developers, they're under the gun of high-level executives at Fortune 500 companies. They didn't have that.
You can still voice your displeasure and not be an asshole. You don't have to pretend to like something just to show support for somebody. You do not help these developers by pretending like they released a good product when they didn't. Because as of right now, at $26, I would not recommend anybody buy this game.
Oh, gosh. The audacity to release it for $26. People want to say it's not a $60 game. It's worth the money. It's not. You look at other games. The best example that I can think of is like Mortal Shell. If I were the developers who made this game, I would take quick note of Mortal Shell. That game is awesome. It's $30. It was made by 15 people, and it only took 2 years. Now, how could they do it right? And they can't? I don't know. Maybe it's adding more developers. Maybe it's not financially appropriate to think that you can be profitable with only 3 people and only develop the game for 4 years.
I just wouldn't. I'm not gonna try and get a refund for it. I'm gonna hang on to the game and I'm gonna hope that it gets patched.
Let's hope that it gets patched, because I think what's the day? Sunday. They've already released I think 2 patches, but still, it's like this is not a patch job. This is like a major bug fix updates that they need on a consistent basis. They need to release patches every day for the next 2 weeks minimum.
I've never done like reviews for a game, but as far as like what I would give this game out of a 10, I'm not kidding, man. I'd give it a 3, and it's entirely on aesthetics. If it was gameplay, this game would get a 0.
That's way too generous. 3 is way too generous. I was thinking more like 1.2, 1.7. It's not. Yeah, it's a bit too generous.
It's pretty rough. If you feel like arguing in the comment section or whatever, be my guest. I'll be here all day. If you have played Bleak Faith, feel free to let me know your thoughts too in the comments. If you haven't played Bleak Faith, good luck if you decide to do it.
Yeah, so look. We have less than 1K peak players. Like, what? Less than 1,000 people went on the release weekend. Like games like this, their peak players come during the weekend. If they don't shoot up higher, which I doubt it because it's been getting a lot of bad press, and people are going to be reluctant to buy it, because with these games, you have to really rely on hype for people to buy this game, buy games like this. Like Elden Ring, it took, I think, 3 days after release for it to hit its all-time peak, and then never like got up there again. Which, I mean, is normal. Not like this is normal. But to have it at under 1K peak players it won't shoot up higher than 1K. I'd be honestly surprised. It still may, but if it has to happen today, the Sunday after the release. And that's usually after the positive reviews and people have seen what things that they like. And people are saying good things about it, and then they're going to get bought into the hype. But that's not happening with this. As this is all they're going to get. And I'll be surprised if the developers come out profitable.